The Oregon Trail is one of the true classics of PC gaming. It's one of the earliest games made for some of the first computers that ever existed. Back in 1848, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak actually created computers in order to help the frontiersmen. The frontiersmen had to do a lot of calculations while they were traveling across the wild unknown of the West in America. They had to calculate how tall the mountains were, and how many legs their horses would need to get over the mountains, and if they had enough hamburgers to actually get across the mountains, and if not, how many bisons they would have to shoot to make enough hamburgers. Lots of really complicated math, and doing it on their fingers was not very feasible. So the Steves, Jobs, and Wozniak went ahead and created the first computers to help them out with getting this taken care of automatically. The first computer that they brought to market for this purpose was the Apple II. Now before continuing this video, we have to take a quick second to take a look at the Apple II, because it's vital to understand computers at the time that were involved in this video game. So let's go ahead and switch over to a quick look at the Apple II. So whenever I shoot one of these gaming history videos, I always try to make sure that I'm playing the game in a way as close to its original release as possible. And in this case, that means playing Oregon Trail on an original Apple II. So it can be a little difficult to get these, and even if you find them, they're old, so it takes some work to get them up and running again. So I wanted to cover a little bit of that in this video. So this right here is an original Apple II, just like they used back in the Pioneer days. Now this one's actually a pretty early model. As you can see, it's the 17th Apple II produced. Wow. I'm pretty lucky to get my hands on this. Got this at a swap meet with a bunch of other classic retro gamers, and it's gonna take a little work to get this up and running. It's a little beat up. After all, it is a classic Apple II. A little bit of cracking, a little bit of yellowing, but we can get this up and running no problem. Alright, so I got her open up here, and the first thing I notice here is this chip we got installed right here. Now, back during the Prohibition era, where PC gaming was illegal, these kind of chips were installed into all sorts of PCs to prevent PC gaming from happening. If the government saw that you were PC gaming through one of these chips, they'd be able to send their goons to your house to send you to the gulag. You don't want anything to do with that. So these things can sometimes still be active, and they can send agents to your house sometimes, but you want to get rid of this. Okay, so we gotta be very careful when you remove these chips, because these chips have a special security unit installed called a suicide battery. Now, if you trigger that suicide battery, you're going to want to commit suicide, and that's not fun. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to sever its connection up here. It's a very delicate procedure to remove this. You have to be very delicate, use very special... Alright, we got it out. As you can see, there is no more security chip. The government cannot find out that we're doing illegal PC gaming. Good stuff. Okay, so now that we've got the insides taken care of, we got to pay some attention to the outsides. As you can see, this used to be, when it was originally released, a pretty bright white color, but with time and sun damage, eventually this is kind of yellowed and gotten kind of ugly. Now, fortunately, people in the retro PC community have found a method for restoring the color back to its original. It's a process called retrobrining. Now, retrobrining involves putting a special chemical solution onto the beige parts, which will reverse some of the chemical aging that's happened to it and restore it to its original white. And we're going to want to do that to this. It's getting a little icky. So we're going to go ahead and apply the special chemical solution designed specifically for retrobrining. Okay, just a little bit. Okay, we're already looking much better, much closer to the original shade of white that these computers shipped with back in the olden times. Now, of course, the Apple II didn't have a built-in hard drive or nothing. These had to boot off of a floppy disk. So in order to get this up and running, we're going to have to go ahead and boot from a floppy. So let's see what we got here. There it is, good old Oregon Trail. Let's go ahead and get this sucker going. Okay, and as you can see, we're up and running. We got the Oregon Trail running on our Apple II. Wasn't that hard to get going. I think it's worth it to get the authentic experience for playing Oregon Trail. So, great, good stuff. Heck, on with the video. Now, having the Apple II to do all their calculations automatically, it helped them some, but overall, it was just a little convenience thing. It really didn't do too much for them to make traversing the frontier any easier. Now, a few years after the Apple II was released, there was this group of teachers teaching their kids how to become efficient frontiersmen, all the skills they would need, etc. This group of teachers, Don Rawich, Paul Dillenberger, and Bill Heinemann, actually figured out that kids weren't really paying attention to what they were trying to teach them. It turns out around this time, kids were just far too distracted by something else. There was this game on the Apple II called Third Night, and all these kids were just doing these third night dances in class and not paying attention and treating learning like it was a joke. Now, if you don't know what Third Night is, it's this PC game. It's even older than Oregon Trail. It was actually made by Cliffy B's great-great-grandfather, Griff Blazinski. Griff was involved with starting the project up, but he ended up leaving it before it became a big hit. Griff was pretty distraught about this, and he ended up trying to get some of that popularity back by making a few Third Night clones. They never really panned out, and he also had this bad habit of sending out a lot of carrier pigeons with his little inane thoughts to all over the place, and people started to look at him like he's some kind of crazy guy. He never ended up making it big after that, and he just kind of died in irrelevancy. So seeing how enamored these kids were with this Third Night game, these teachers decided, hey, maybe if we made a game about being frontiersmen, we could get the attention of these kids back, and these kids would start learning something. And with that, the Oregon Trail was born. And it worked! The kids loved the Oregon Trail. The Oregon Trail was actually one of the first battle royales ever released. It's pretty much the grandfather of the modern-day battle royale. In this game, you would have teams of frontiersmen all competing to be the last surviving team to make it to Oregon. The Oregon Trail is actually a class-based battle royale game. There's 3 classes in it. You have the Farmer, which serves as a healer class. They buff their teammates' energy using various meats and grains. You have the Carpenter, which serves as the tank of the group. They would build wooden fences and blockades that the enemies would have to focus their attacks on, letting the rest of their teammates, attack them while they're busy attacking the fences and stuff. And then you have the Banker, which serves as the DPS of the group. The Banker does quick damage by directly attacking the opponent's credit score until they don't have enough money to actually pay the rent or live or eat food anymore, and then they die. It was the original origin of what's now known as the Trinity, and we have this game to thank for all the future RPGs that use that Trinity today. After seeing what a big hit the Oregon Trail was with their students, these teachers decided to go ahead and give this game a shot as a commercial game. So the game was first revealed to the public at the 1853 E3. It was a big hit. It was the star of the show. Everyone was all over it. It's surprising how successful it was, especially since at this same E3, Nintendo was showing off their first game, Super Mario Bros. Super Mario Bros. At the time didn't really take off because being a plumber wasn't invented yet, so nobody knew what the heck it was about. I'm glad we can look back at it as a cult classic, but at the time it was such a flop. Once the game became commercially available and anybody could play it, it started to become a problem. You see, the game was proving to be really distracting in schools. Kids were sneaking their Apple IIs into class and hiding it behind their books to play while the teacher's back was turned. It got so bad that most schools started to actually ban it. This had a negative effect as well, because kids were getting upset about this and they decided to just drop out of school completely so they could play the game. And this kind of caused a domino effect. At that point, these kids' moms would kick their kids out of the house for being a loser, and then you had these nomad gamers who just wanted to play Oregon Trail with nowhere to go. So being essentially the homeless now, they had nothing more to do other than heading on west and to live on the land playing Oregon Trail. So now you have this entire generation of kids all just heading out west, looking for their freedom so they can play as much Oregon Trail as they want, whenever they want. There were so many of them heading so far west that eventually they actually reached Oregon themselves. This generation of kids conquered the wilds of America and settled the country. We essentially have Oregon Trail to thank for America as it is today. Because of this event, Oregon is considered a mecca of gaming. And to this day, gamers still make pilgrimages to it. Thanks, Oregon Trail. America wouldn't be what it is if it weren't for you. Big props to all my supporters on Patreon. Here's some of them right now. If you want to support me as well, the Patreon link is right here. If you want to buy a t-shirt with a picture of Peter on it, the link's in the description. Thanks for watching, Mario.